Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trenchcoat featuring Crota's End. Decidedly not Wrath of the Machine.
Whether we wanted it or not, we've stepped into a war with
Hive!
Again?
Crota is back, and instead of leaving his Ethernet cable in a place where any dumb shit cat can trip over it and unplug him, he's upgraded to a brand new fiber internet plan so that people have to actually do his fight correctly. We'll see how long that lasts. In any case, he's also figured out a way to install the Chalice of Light into every encounter like some bad malware, which protects him from getting memed on like the solo flawless dungeon he used to be back in D1. The way this chalice works is that you pick it up to clock in to your minimum wage job. You'll have to sit there for the entire shift duration, kill ads to pass the time faster, and then wait for someone to replace you and clock you out, which will give you the Enlightened buff. If no one comes to relieve you, eventually you'll just mysteriously die so that whichever big corporation you work for doesn't have to pay you overtime. Speaking of capitalism, for the low price of $8 US, you can buy the Beat People to Death with It DLC to turn the chalice into a weapon of its own. More on Destiny 2's new pay-to-win strats in future updates. It can get kind of confusing on when to take the chalice since everyone is going to be shouting instructions and asking who's taking from who, so I recommend installing a safe word. The chalice should only be taken when the safe word is said, and you should only say the safe word when you want the chalice taken from you. I'm going to suggest the word harder because that's how life fucks you, but if I hear any of you using my safe word in LFG, I'm going to jump off a bridge. Specifically, this bridge. Do the chalice a few more times to build a mini bridge, and then yeet yourself deep into the core of the moon. The Abyss is an encounter all about wandering around in the dead of night like an overworked parent trying not to step on the Legos that their shit-for-brain kid left laying around. The surrounding area is so dark that some live, laugh, love Jersey girl is just waiting to tell it to think more positively. Curing depression has never been so easy. For this encounter, you'll want to decide on a turn order. You can use the fire team list if you want, or you can do something more inventive like those board game instructions that tell you that the player who ate toast most recently gets to take the first turn, followed by the player who is most in debt to the IRS. Whomever is chosen to go first will pick up and charge the chalice, then make their way over to one of these lamps. Once they've received the Enlightened buff, they can light said lamp to combat the Weight of Darkness debuff that the encounter puts on you. This also lights a 10-second fuse, turning the lantern itself into a deadly yellow firecracker. The next person will have to then dunk the chalice into a little pedestal so that the next lamp will activate, and the third player will pick it up and continue from there. Thus begins a long 8-minute endurance encounter filled with bullshit lantern physics, smacking you with folding chairs from downtown, and enough holes that it could realistically be the plot to any 7th grade Wattpad fanfiction. The deaths you receive from those two factors alone could keep you stuck here for hours. Throughout the encounter, you'll also have the minute-long Engulfed in Darkness debuff that'll reset with each lamplight and wipe you if it ever hits 0. There's also a few more of those Uno skip your turn preservation pedestals randomly placed at lanterns along the way that will physically prevent you from moving on if you don't respect them. Make your way from lantern to lantern as your sword tracking yeets you in random directions unexpectedly until you get to a lone plate at the very end of the maze. This plate, when enlightened, will begin the process of building another bridge. Build the bridge, avoid the swinging lanterns, and then, like a lucent moth to a flame, walk blindly towards the light. The next encounter has you building your third and final bridge, except now Crota's civil engineering department has caught wind of your activity and has started to hold you to stringent engineering standards. If you fail to follow their guidelines, they will actively work to tear your bridge down. You'll start off by enlightening this central plate, which will be the first of your many code violations. All plate-standing individuals are required to be supervised by 2 totem foremen at any given time. To remedy this, relegate at least one player to a totem on each side. With the bridge construction underway, begin to pass the chalice around to get everyone enlightened. I've found that having one player run it around to all of the work sites tends to work the best, but this raid has been out for less than a week as of writing this script, if you don't count the other 8 years, so I'm sure someone will find a way to absolutely hate that strategy. After a while, some sword bearers will begin to crawl out of the ground which, when killed, will drop the sword that they bear. Article 19.23, subsection 15, paragraph 18, clause 4 dictates that in regards to on-site relic sword machinery, you must obtain the Enlightened certification. This is to say that only the players who have already received the chalice can pick up the swords. Once the sword is in your hands, wait until the bridge has been completed. On the far side of the arena, a new gatekeeper enemy will spawn which can only be damaged via your sword. Beat the ever-loving shit out of it. This will light up one of the 10 decorative thrall statues and then activate a pedestal for you to immortalize your battered and bruised sword into. Depositing a sword is the trigger that causes another sword bearer to spawn so that the process may be repeated. Continue this until you run out of players that aren't actively being restrained by their need to stand on plates. For those of you reading the Gospel of Gabe Newell, that's 3. Now you have a handy little build crew on the far side of the bridge who will need to somehow manage another stack of Enlightened by way of the Chalice in order to start the bridge building from their side. 2 people stand under totems, and the third player with Enlightened will dunk it on the plate. If everyone performs their function, victory is assured. But if playing Genji or Hanzo is more your thing and you want to be off killing ads in a corner, then the bridge will break itself down for failing to follow article whatever I said 2 minutes ago, and everyone will need to wait on their plates for the bridge to build again so the other 3 players can bring single swords across. Once you've finally gotten 5 swords across and 5 gatekeepers down, gather up on the far side of the room and feel free to get off of your plates. Much like the Writers Guild, you're going on strike, and Crota's engineering team has nothing in their arsenal to stop you since you don't need the bridge anymore. Instead, they're going to storm the picket line all at once while the rest of you unsheath your swords for one final ass-whooping. The Thrall statues will ignite, and the chest will spawn. But wait! It's time for the lightning round. Instead of a jumping puzzle for the second secret chest, you'll be faced with some impenetrable green condom walls, and you'll have to pick up the chalice of baby oil to breach your way through and kill the Shrieker to open the way for the rest of your fire team. Do this twice as fast as you can and get someone to dunk the chalice before the secret chest is locked away behind this door. Win or lose, you can then dunk the chalice and drop down into the next encounter. Ur-Ute is the new damage sponge encounter, which is preluded by a game of continental hide and seek. But first, we here at Raid Guys in a Trenchcoat believe in making sure you understand the stakes of what's going on in the lore. You see, before the Guardians came around turning every hive god they could into guns that would be nerfed into mediocrity, Crota had found love. Omnigul. They fucked, at least 4 times, and then Crota left for milk and fell asleep in his throne world for a few decades. Then, Omnigul tried to resurrect him so that he could pay child support, and we fucked that up for her. Later, we killed Omnigul. We thought that made Crota sad, so we went to his throne world door and knocked on it to check and see if he was okay, but little did we know, Ur-Ute had beaten us to the punch and was now the new girl in Crota's life, mending his broken heart from inside his throne world. All of that said, with the fact that Ur-Ute, spawn of Crota, is not listed as a daughter of Omnigul, and the fact that she could be heard whispering brother during the encounter, this could be a little less rekindling love in a broken heart and a bit more Sweet Home Alabama. Anyways, the encounter is super simple. Split up into 2 teams of 3 and clear the back hallways by killing every single living thing in the room. 1 hidden acolyte and nothing else will spawn until you find where it's trying to clip out of bounds. Each hallway ends with a Shrieker becoming active, and once they've been defeated, the green walls from before will come down and allow you to claim the Chalice of Light. For the first damage phase, you'll need 3 people in total to get Enlightened, adding 1 additional member for each damage phase after that. This is because there are that many Continental Ambassadors silently granting her diplomatic immunity from behind the scenes, which I guess has more physical repercussions given that this is Crota's fairy tale throne world. They're all hiding in rooms that are blocked by the same green barriers that can only be passed through with the Enlightened buff. The catch here is that you'll need to scout the rooms ahead of time. Some contain the Ambassador Witches that you need to kill, and others contain Shriekers which just kinda end up being big middle fingers to your fire team. To scout, you simply need to walk around the rooms and look for the circles on the minimap. These circles denote vehicles. Shriekers are vehicles, and none of the Ambassadors know how to drive because they have people for that. Call out which rooms contain defenseless Ambassadors so that your teammates can go to them. Going around the room, you have North America and South America on the left, Europe and Asia on the right, and then Africa, Australia, and Antarctica along the back. Everyone gets into position, and you'll need to kill all 3 Ambassadors at the same time. Doing 1 kill starts the damage phase, and doing the last kill drops her shield so that you can actually do the damage phase. Oh, also taking too long starts the damage phase. Dark Liturgy is the debuff to watch for, as when the timer hits 0, you'll go back to the Chalice and rinse and repeat with 1 more delegate than before. There's a damage check built in, but it's mostly just saving you from yourself if your damage wouldn't be enough to 3-phase her in the first place. There's also the Expunge mechanic that lets you trade in some extra stacks of Enlightened for a nice little damage nuke. Kill the delegates again, dunk the Chalice, and break Crota's heart for a second time. To begin the encounter, everyone needs to huddle up by this big green Chaos Emerald and then watch as Crota does some LEGO Star Wars style building of his altar. He'll strike a cool anime pose, and the encounter will begin. Crota has a shield, and you need the special swords from the bridge encounter to break that shield. To get the swords, you'll need to kill a sword bearer. To spawn a sword bearer, you'll have to kill some boomers. No, wait, not those boomers. These boomers. You'll also need to be enlightened to grab the swords, but you've already learned how to pick that up and pass it around. Except instead of getting to use your safe word anywhere you want, Crota is going to designate special safety zones where you'll have to do your business. OSHA really takes no prisoners. After killing the Swordbearer, you'll still have half a full rotation of adds left to kill before the boomers will spawn again. This consists of 2 ogres followed by 4 witches. Make sure during all of this you're leaving a few extra people with the enlightened buff because you'll need it for mechanics later. Once you've gotten a few swords, or 2 swords and a tractor cannon, group up by Crota's Chaos Emerald and make him run over to you. All the sword players should leap out and heavy swing and relic super while everyone else stands idly by, waiting for their turn to do damage. Crota eats wells like Americans eat sticks of butter, so maybe you should heed Bungie's not so subtle reminder that warlocks have at least 6 other supers to choose from besides Well of Radiance. I only play my Chad Hunter, so I don't actually even know if that's true. Maybe that's the only super they get, and then everything else is just them converting grenades into laser beams. In one final reveal of his character, Crota calls you all suckers and then unleashes his inner Homestuck by transforming his big-ass Hive Servitor into the Green Sun. One player who hasn't accidentally wasted their Enlightened buff by expunging will need to destroy the Green Sun before its Oversoul timer hits 0 and wipes the encounter. But they can't do it too fast because destroying the Green Sun ends the damage phase. Do this a few times until you get to Final Stand, back away before he explodes into Arc Energy, and then lay into him with whatever ammo you have left, resetting the Oversoul as necessary. And with that, congrats, you've completed Crota's End. It took you 6 Guardians to do what one Guardian has been able to do for ages in D1. Tell me again about how power creep is real. Go watch a real guide.